We continue and conclude the 16th letter. Yesterday we spoke about very powerful halacha, Jewish law, as chayachicha imach. The verse says that your brother lives with you, but subordinate to you. Meaning, what did our sages learn out from that? That if you are stuck in the desert with one cup of water, one flask of water, the person that has it, their life takes precedence. That was the halacha. We can brought furthermore, the Alter Rebbe says that's only when there's an equivalence. But when there isn't an equivalence, as in the Talmud when it speaks about a stream of water that goes down through two communities, the first community uses it for not essentials of life, like drinking water for humans and animals, but use it for washing clothes because they have another source for drinking water. But the second community where this stream of water comes in needs it for drinking water. So the first community doesn't have rights over those waters because their essential need for this second community takes precedence over the non-essential needs of the first community. Right? That's the law. And so therefore, we see that in Jewish law, that when you have more than essentials in life, like you have, fish and meat for Shabbos, right? You have things that are beyond what maybe others are struggling with, literally bread on the table, bread for their children to eat. So this is delicacies versus essentials. Then you can't say your life takes precedence. Then the needs of those who don't have take precedence by law. By law. It's very powerful law. God, and that's why it's God's law. No one could, enforce such a thing except for God. Now the Alter Rebbe continues making the argument further of why we should be giving even when it is really hard, really difficult. So the above that we just spoke about is by the requirement of the law. But in fact, even if such reasoning wouldn't exist, in other words, you're on equal footing with others, right? In other words, it's not about luxuries for yourself, it's about your own slice of bread. Or or possibly that the poor are not crying about literally just bread for children, right? But other things that are, beyond that they're lacking. Didn't have a piece of fish for Shabbos for, months. By way of example, right? So the Alter Rebbe says, so even if you're on equal footing, it would not be proper to insist to live by the letter of the law. In other words, that the letter of the law would be that your life takes precedence and your needs takes precedence. Rather, says the Alter Rebbe, you should impose austerity on your own life and go beyond the letter of the law. That's the first point. In other words, live beyond the letter of the law. That is the letter of the law, but that doesn't mean, in other words, maybe you could make do with bread, but your neighbor, he'll have fish, and you won't have fish. By the letter of the law, you don't need to do that. But that's beyond the letter of the law. That's the first point. Second point in this idea is that one should be concerned with what our sages say, that even in a situation when your life takes precedence, and you would be exacting in that, in others, I'm getting the fish first before you, and we don't go beyond the letter of the law, the sages say that eventually we'll be brought to this matter, and eventually we're going to be in need of charity. In other words, if we don't go beyond the letter of the law, then the letter of law will then come to us and we'll be in need at one point, says the Alter Rebbe. So that's another half of that point that he makes. Second point that he makes is that we all need God's compassion at all times. How do you get God's compassion? In other words, maybe remember we're talking about financial straits right now that a person might be going through. But there's a lot more to life than just your financial straits. There's your mental health, there's your emotional health, there is your physical health. There is your family life. And all of other things, right? Here we're just talking about now your financial and livelihood and of things in your life. So says the Alter Rebbe, even when it might be an equal footing with another, still give. Why? Because we all need God's compassion. How do you elicit God's compassion? That could be, again, for all areas of life, not just for our sustenance. We elicit it by arousing it from below. How do we arouse it from below? By being compassionate for those who are in need. But I'm in need? Okay. So as we said, we could do without, and yet, imagine giving to someone more than what we have. And we're giving it. Not we're just happy that they got more. But we are giving that more to another. And again, the reasoning over here is that you are being compassionate to another because ultimately I need God's compassion. Right? But whoever hardens their heart and suppresses this compassion and doesn't give, right? Then suppresses the divine compassion to be elicited for you in your life. So that's the second point. Third point, says the Alter Rebbe, is that we're not all righteous. There isn't a person that isn't lacking, right, in some manner. And therefore, when we're lacking, what do we need? Of course, we need to ask forgiveness for what we're lacking, but even more than or beyond that, we want atonement, forgiveness, atonement, cleansing. How do you achieve that? Tzedakah, by being charitable. And then that actually protects us from misfortune. In other words, again, we're talking about you're on equal footing. You don't need to give because your life takes precedence by law. But now he's talking beyond the letter of the law, that by your giving, and now someone might even have a little more than you do. Okay. What happens when you give like that? We are all lacking. We all need atonement. We need cleansing. Cleansing can come through misfortune. When you give tzedakah, you can take away the misfortune. So keep that in mind in giving. Because we all need to be protected from misfortune, both in body and soul. And as it's written in Job, skin for skin, limb for limb, and all that a man will give for his soul to save his life. So here, by giving tzedakah, you're saving from that misfortune that could befall you. Doesn't necessarily will befall you, but could befall you, right? So another argument makes the Alter Rebbe of why we should be giving, even in the most challenged situation. And a fourth point that he makes is when we are really believers, the descendants of believers, what do we believe? Not merely that we believe in God, of course, but we believe in God that anything that we have is only on loan from God. Right? So, therefore, as King Solomon says in Proverbs, he who is gracious unto the poor is like lending to God. It's like giving money. It's like lending to God. Well, if you lend to God, what does that mean? It means he owes you. It means he's going to repay you with good. And he's going to be twofold repayment, which is unique because we do not get payment for any mitzvah in this world except for tzedakah, for charity. Why? Because when you give charity, it's beneficial to people. It's beneficial to people. So just as you benefited people here, God will be gracious upon you because what you gave to that person is like lending it to God. That means God owes you. That's what we believe. That's what it means to be believers, right? The descendants of believers, that we believe this. That actually God owes me. And he's going to repay me. And we really believe that. So therefore, I can give with that notion. Again, even when I'm not obliged to give. Fifth point, and a final point, that argument that the Alter Rebbe makes on why you should be giving, even in the most difficult situations. Because there is a concept, and here the Alter Rebbe is speaking in reference to the collection that he was making for the real destitute people in the land of Israel. And he's speaking to fellow Hasidim who are not so well off, are having difficulties, as he says at the beginning of the letter. I know your difficulties that you're having. Yet, nonetheless, still be giving. So there were collectors going around in the name of the Alter Rebbe, on behalf of the Alter Rebbe, to collect from the Chassidim and send that money to the people in Israel. Right? This is what this letter is about, that they should still continue to give, as they do every year. So there's a concept that when a community joins in a venture, it becomes a community venture when someone doesn't join forces or is absent and not there with the community. It's not the absence means he can't be counted upon. It's not a good thing to be separating yourself from the community and their efforts. Not a good thing. You need to join. You need to associate with the sake of this mitzvah. Concludes the Alter Rebbe. May life be pleasant for those who give heed, and may blessings of all kinds of goodness rest upon them. Act benevolently, O God, towards the good and the upright, as is their wish, and as is the wish of the writer, who seeks their welfare with all his heart and soul. So Alter Rebbe wasn't saying this in order to gain something from them. He was doing it for their benefit. I mean, it wasn't money he was gaining, it was money that he was giving to others. But I felt very strongly that this is the benefit for them that they should be giving. And the arguments that he made here are very powerful and profound arguments to give. Ooh. I think it speaks for itself. Of course, this gives us a different dimension of what tzedakah in charity is. Another powerful letter, another angle. We've had several angles about the importance and value of tzedakah. Right. Many different. In any case, may Hashem give us plenty so we could give plenty, that it shouldn't be painful. But even in the plenty that we have, give plentiful. Rachel, would giving be compared to an atonement offering? Yes, it seems even when we have challenges, Hashem saves us from the many worse, more severe demise. Yeah. So it is like an offering, absolutely. Yeah. Davida, is there a time when we shouldn't give, such as if we think that we're being scammed, or should we just give unconditionally? Very good question, Davida. Yeah, no. You first of all, to someone on the street or someone that you have, you don't know. So then the giving is, proportionate. Here the Alter Rebbe is speaking about community in Israel that is very destitute. Back then it was under Israel was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. Israel's a rocky terrain. It's a very difficult place. Now it's lush and beautiful, blessings there that are beyond. But that's because it's under control of the Jews now. Then it was control over non-Jews, and as the sages tell us, that it will always be a destitute land when it's under their control. So if it's a scam, don't give anything, for sure not. If it's something, someone on the street, so we're talking about a minimal giving when it's coming to those who are in need, or then and you know who they are, then that's very different. Anna, how should we react to billionaires or Jews who couldn't care about less about others? Teach them by example. Don't wish anything negative for them if they're not giving. Teach them by example. Teach the teachings that maybe they will hear the teachings and be inspired. The Alter Rebbe once he was collecting money for a family that was imprisoned by, they didn't make their payments. Back in the day, the Poritz, the squire, the landowner, and you had to rent the land from the squire, and his family had an inn, and it was really difficult times, and they couldn't make ends meet. So they were thrown into a dungeon, into a prison. The Alter Rebbe went collecting for this family. And he came to the wealthy person in the community, who was known as a real miser. A billionaire back 200 years ago. Right? Adam was a real miser. No one could get anything significant, anything that's meaningful from this person. Alter Rebbe comes with a few other chassidim, and he knocks on the door, and he asks him what he's there for, so he explains for this family, and so he goes and he brings a copper penny, whatever was a copper, like insignificant, meaningless giving. And I don't recall now if they actually threw it or gave it to him. The Alter Rebbe accepted it with exuberance and said thank you and gave a bracha. I was about to turn away. He says, and he explained to him, by the way, how much he needed, and this is what he gave was, nothing. He says, wait. How much did you say you needed? So he told him it was 5,000 rubles. So he turns around, wait a moment. He goes and brings him 1,000 rubles. Alter Rebbe says, again, thanks him and blessings he gives to him. And about to turn around. And he says, wait a second. He goes back and he gives him the whole 5,000 rubles. So Chassidim were blown away. What happened over here? So and when they left, the Alter Rebbe explained very simply. Everybody else that ever came to him, when they got that copper penny, even the poor guy, it was worth nothing, or next to nothing. And not only was worth next to nothing, but the insult was worth a lot more than the copper penny. So you know what everybody did? They threw it back at him. They sometimes insulted him. Sometimes they even, or some they insulted him, or sometimes it's just, even if it said no thank you, gave it back, just turned away and said nothing. But I appreciated him for who he is and thanked him for whatever he did. That was the first time he ever experienced that. That aroused in him to want to give more. So when you see those that are not kind, don't be unkind to them. When you see those that are not giving, don't call them out on it. Inspire them. Teach them. Be the giving one. Or be thankful for whatever they give. Because in fact, whatever you get, you say thank you. So I hope that helps, Anna. Davida, do we give to non-Jews as we give to fellow Jews? Well, there's a priority in how you're supposed to give. Your immediate family, distant, closer, the family as it extends out, your community that you live amongst and that you are a part of. There's a family in our community here that the husband, the breadwinner, broke his leg and not able to work for 6 weeks. And was not in a position really to collect much from the government for whatever reason. And so myself, particularly my son, got together, and my son really, Mendel, who really made it happen, just reached out to people. And people, like lots of money came in. Thousands. Because there'll be a couple of months that he can't work. A family, almost 10 kids. That's what we're talking about. So yes, your community. So non-Jew. We have a responsibility to non-Jews, but it's not there's nothing equal. There's a priority list. So yeah, giving a blessing. Absolutely. Blessings will inspire. John, is it necessary for us to know what another might give? Not clear what you mean. Do we need to know what another might give? No, we don't need to know. It's not our business how much another gives, if that's what you mean. The only reason maybe it's good to know is then it'll inspire you. He gave $500? Oh, I better give 1,000. That's good. That's good. In that instance, it's good to know. So it'll be inspiring. Right, but otherwise it's like Julia says, it's not really our business what another person's giving. But again, if it's going to inspire us, so then that's good. So find out. So that will inspire us that we should give. Yeah. Baruch Hashem. Yeah. This is one of the signs that the Talmud, our sages tell us, of the Jewish people, of giving. Of doing chesed, acts of loving kindness, of giving. And it's to such a degree that if a person doesn't, maybe it's a question, but the lineage, right? And that's the story. All right, folks. Yesterday we had an amazing TRC. Sunday we'll have again, of course. Sunday, of course, we'll have a double header in Tanya, and we'll, of course, have Torah portion of the week, getting ready for Rosh Hashanah. And now we're going to have Rambam. Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing day and a